It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulsen. All right, little stock up, stock down, Logan. Let's try to get one each. One player each, stock up. One player each, stock down. The stock down, I feel like, is actually going to be difficult, which is a good thing. You don't want guys just tanking in the spring. Stock up for me. I'm going to go Chase Young. I'll start, and I'll go Chase Young.
Wow, that's a bold one off of 2 days of practice, my guy.
Well, here's the thing. I think we're not talking about all of a sudden Chase is like back to being, I expect him to have 14 sacks a year, go to the Hall of Fame, like whatever. But I do think that like when he showed up, he looked good and he interacted well with everybody. And there seemed to be genuinely no resentment about him, missing out. And some of that is Rivera being a professional, right? Stock up Ron Rivera on that front. He handled it as a head coach as well as you can possibly handle that situation if you do not want conflict. And if he is privately annoyed, that hasn't gotten out. They have said it's voluntary. He's doing what he's got to do. And I think they're at this point with him in a big, like, we'll see, proof will be when you actually get out there and play. But at the end of the day, like, he came back. The interaction was great. He was Chase, he's barking on the sideline. He's bringing the energy. He's doing all this stuff. Like, his press conference was kind of annoying. He seems to still have a very, high sense of self and all those kinds of things that I think are, I don't want to say worrisome, but like that rub some people the wrong way. But he ultimately like came out and looked good and felt like himself for the first time since he shredded his knee. And
Right.
If that's, if we're talking about an added value or, staying exactly where we thought he was, like, that's good. Some of the questions, I don't want to say have been answered. Let me put it this way. Not all of the questions have been answered, but some of the questions have been answered, and they've been answered in the way that you'd hope they get answered. Teammates responded well. That's good. His knee is definitely, and his health and his fitness is definitely in a significantly better place than it was at the end of the season. We still don't know how effective he'll be in actual NFL games. We can't know that at this point. But like, boxes checked for Chase in the spring, and that's all, in the same way that we've talked about so much of this stuff. There's only so much he could do at this point, but he did that stuff. And for that reason, stock up.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah, I get it. And really, what's he going to show during this period anyway? As a player, I think it's all like kind of optics, and I think it's just good to see him get over the bags and get off. Watching his get off on what day was that? Tuesday of last week. Like,
Yeah.
he looked sharp. He looked
Right.
explosive. Like, he looked back, and those things are important.
He looked better than he did in the games last year.
Yeah. In terms of stock up, stock down for me, stock up, I'm going to say Logan Thomas, but also just kind of the tight end position group in general. I really feel like, and I
Stunner
said this,
coming from you.
yeah, I mean, I feel like, during this period, the Logan Thomas specifically has been the most consistent offensive player. He's just been excellent, understanding zones, making contested catches, developing that relationship with Sam, and then kind of to trickle down, like, Cole Turner has kind of been that guy that we thought he was going to be last year during training camp, kind of continuing that, ability to beat linebackers, kind of aggressive hands to the football. Curtis Hodges has come along, and John Bates has had a really couple productive days over the course of the 8-day period, making some tough contested catches. So that group to me looks poised for something really good. And that's exciting for me. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, we'll see how they do with the pads on. That position is a little bit more physical than others, so the pads are a big part of it. But in terms of where they're at right now, I'm excited about the projection of that group. So
Yeah. I'm trying to think of someone for stock down, and I don't really know who had any, even on a relative nature, kind of what I was talking about with Chase. Like, I don't know anyone in particular who had a bad spring. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's chances at starting because Sam did what he needed to do. Like, what
maybe.
I
mean, he was fine. To me, the guy that
solid.
sticks out to me is like Jamin, for example. And it's not because Jamin did anything wrong necessarily.
Right.
It's just because, like, the guys who were there, like Cody Barton, Khalil Hudson, even Mayo had a pretty solid spring, and so it kind of went from, oh no, what are we going to do without Jamin there? to Jack and his presser being like, man, guys are playing good. We're not that worried about Jamin not being here for this offseason. So I think that just kind of from a 1,000-foot view, if you had to pick somebody and say, what's going on with him, where's he at? And again, I hope, I think Jamin's poised for a big year. Hopefully they're ready to support him with that, playing behind that defensive line. Hopefully we see more of that athleticism, that physicality that we saw the last 4 games of last year. But in terms of off-season work, he didn't do it. And the guys who were doing it did a really good job. So his absence becomes a little bit less acute, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so that gives me one. In that same vein, I'll go Cam Curl.
Yeah.
Because, we had that great question on Monday of like, is there a situation where Curl doesn't get paid? And, it's, I guess, that they don't need to pay him. Is
Right.
that they have Derek Forrest and Percy Butler and Quan Martin and even down to Jeremy Reeves for depth that, they look at Cam Curl and it's like, look, man, if you can get top 5 safety money somewhere else, go do it. But like, we got to pay these edge guys, or we got to pay one of the edge guys. We got to do this. We got to do that. And just from a salary cap standpoint, you're awesome. We love you, but like, we did a good job drafting, and your replacement's here. His name's Quan Martin. Thanks for helping bringing him along in his rookie year. So in that way, like, Cam did everything right for a guy that is, holding in kind of ish. He denies that it's about the contract, but why else wouldn't he be out there doing stuff? He not only was, kind of on the side and in the meetings, like he was behind the defense, getting mental reps, like really being able to see it from, 30 yards behind the play, 50 yards behind the play. But at the end of the day, these other guys played really well. And, how much do you want to pay even a top performing safety that is part of this rotation that isn't significantly worse without him? That would be the question, though. Is it significantly worse without him? That we're not going to know till, again, the Baltimore practices, till games. And Cam last year was the most valuable player on that defense. When he was in, they were good. When he was out, they were bad. And so from that perspective, like, what are we really talking about here? We're talking about practice. We're talking about spring practice. We're talking about 0 run plays, etc. But I guess based off the criteria that we've established here, relatively speaking, stock down for Cam Curl and, leverage of his contract negotiations, because these young guys look like they're ready to play. And, at that point, do you spend that money? Still probably yes, but just, we're pulling teeth here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and again, it's splitting hairs, really. We're not trying to like say that Cam's not a good player or Cam's not going to make the team
awesome.
or any of that
I would
stuff.
still pay him in a heartbeat.
I think it just was an opportunity for the young guys to come in, like including Percy Butler, including Forrest and Quan, like you mentioned, and just say, hey, like, we're really good. We're good football players. We got a path to be playing some good football for this team and for this organization. And when you see that kind of scaffolding develop around that position and have all these pieces that can come in and play, I don't want to say it devalues Cam, but it basically says, like, I had people asking me, like, probably midway through training camp, like, do you see a path where they don't re-sign Cam Curl? And that was one of the questions we got on the show, but like some of the guys were asking me about it. And it's like, after watching this, it's like, maybe because of how good everybody's looked, and that's good for the team. That's good for the organization. I think Cam is better still. I think Cam is kind of, I don't want to say elite, but like a game-changing type player, especially for this defense. And his role is so comprehensive that I don't think they move on from him, obviously. But I think it allowed other people to kind of be like, hey, like we're maturing, we're growing, and put us in a good spot. And I feel the same way about Jamin. Like, I think Jamin's still going to be, the starting Mike or Will linebacker, whatever that is. But I think now all of a sudden people have had time to develop. Like, these reps in practice for a guy like Khaleke Hudson are huge. And it just says, like, hey, we have more depth here. We have some development that we weren't expecting. And so maybe we feel a little bit differently about the total composition of the position.
Totally. But, as we said, what happens when the run game's implemented? The whole equation changes. So all this, these stock prices, if you will, are very fluid. They're going very up and down.
Yeah. And I think it's also like important to note that, like, it's as much as it's, what's the word I'm looking for? As much as these things are really good, like, that the depth has somehow changed. Like, it's still like they don't have pads on. It's still limited offensive production. Like,
Yep.
this is going to change pretty dramatically. I think here, you know, like even these analyses will change. So
Yeah. So it's June 14th. It's now 7:24 in the morning. Nobody hold us to a word that we're saying. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
we do 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do
He's
it.
very, very smart.